We are Geekcentric, and you can be too. Love ya. Get home safe, guys. Peace. Hello, and welcome to this magical episode of the Geekcentric podcast. I'm Kev, and for today's episode, we ask that you keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, as we give our spoiler-free thoughts on an exclusive Disney Plus series set to premiere on the streaming service on July 21st. From executive producer Dwayne Johnson, the show is a look at famous Disney attractions you know and the true stories you don't. Of course, I'm talking about Behind the Attraction. But first, if you're joining us for the first time, this is a weekly show covering the world of film, television, gaming, toys and collectibles, and all things geek-centric. Joining me on the show, we have the man who was born to be a Mouseketeer. He'll make you smile, and he'll make you cheer. It's N-A-T-E Nate.
Oh, nothing. I was expecting something about my spending habits to come up yet again on this podcast when we're talking about Disney stuff. But listen, I'm happy with what you went with. I'm happy with what you went with.
And friendly. Okay.
Also joining us today, when he visits parks, I'm not sure how he gets satisfaction, especially because he's too scared to ride most of the attractions. It's J-Law.
That's true. I like the simple ones. Little Mermaid will always have a place in my heart.
You are a Little Mermaid.
Thank you.
So how we doing, guys? Is it just me, or did this fantastic little series not make you want to get back to the parks like right now, like yesterday?
So bad. I'm ready to go.
Absolutely. Behind the Attraction is a 10-part series narrated by Paget Brewster that delves into the rich and amazing history of Disney parks using archival and never-before-seen footage and photographs to unveil how the attractions came to be and how they've been refined over the years as new ideas surface and technology evolves. Tune in to explore how Imagineers filled the Haunted Mansion with 999 happy haunts, how the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror transformed into Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, while defying gravity in the process, and why Space Mountain took so long to launch. From the 1950s to today, from Jungle Cruise to It's a Small World to Star Wars Galaxy Edge, Disney Parks attractions have amazed millions, and this is the story of how they did it. Including rare interviews with Walt Disney, each episode features exclusive interviews with dozens of past and present Imagineers, as well as others who divulge insider secrets of the parks and how iconic Disney attractions were brought to life. Well, it looks like it's almost time for rope drop, so without further delay, I say we use a fast pass and get right into our high-level thoughts on the show. Just, why don't you get us started?
Sure. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this show. We've talked about it, here and there about how much we love the Imagineering story, and I think that this takes a different approach to that. I think the Imagineering story is done more like a documentary film series that feels very not dramatized, but just a little bit more real. Behind the Attraction feels different from that because it has a lot of humor. The narration felt so familiar to, I think we all kind of may have mentioned this, but the Toys That Made Us. It has that quirky, fun vibe, and it's a really great approach, especially when you're talking about these attractions, right, and these rides and their history.
Yeah, shout out to Paget Brewster, the narrator, who honestly never came off as like grating or annoying. I always enjoyed every time I heard her, at least I did. And yeah, it totally reminded me of the Toys That Made Us, or the movies that made us. And I love the quick cuts that they did, and just how they show I think one of my favorite parts is like when they show the Imagineers in the older footage, and then the way that they edit it lines up with their faces with the newer footage. So you just really get to see how both the people that created the attractions and the attractions themselves grew throughout all these years. It's really, really cool.
And I think that's what helps separate this from the Imagineering
100%.
Story is that instead of one linear sort of timeline about the development of the park from start to where we are today, this one sort of jumps all over the map.
Yes.
And looks at specific elements of ride development and attraction development and how the parks grew in each different episode and how different rides influenced later rides. But yeah, it definitely jumps all over the map. And like we said, just has a lot of fun. Yeah, there'll be somebody who says something I couldn't wait to get on Space Mountain, and then they'll use that as a recurring joke throughout the episode.
Or like I think there's one with Star Tours where it's like it's not a screen, it's a window, and then they would kind of Patrick Brewster would be like, well, just remember, and then it would cut back to the person and be like, it's a window.
Yeah, exactly.
They even did it with it's a roller coaster. It's not a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's not a roller coaster. You can't call it a roller coaster.
You can't call it a roller coaster.
Yeah, for Space Mountain.
I loved the comedy throughout the series in every episode. I felt like they really, because Disney can oftentimes, especially when they're talking about their history, as we see in the Imagineering story, it's very grand and prolific. But this series kind of helps to humanize a lot of those moments and a lot of those stories, because it does talk about some of the things that went wrong. It talks about some of the mistakes that they've made, and it shows some of those moments as well, especially regarding like the Hall of Presidents. And I won't give away what happens there, but it is pretty cool and interesting to see how they failed. Yeah.
And I think what it does is it draws humor from those failures, right? That's what they do really well. And it helps really create a very cohesive series. Like, as much as the Imagineering story is so cohesive, it stays very focused on the Imagineering. This is so lighthearted and fun, and it sticks to the heart of the parks and what makes those rides great, and the history of that throughout that we've seen.
It almost, with that lighthearted nature, does a really good job in sort of recreating the feeling that you get when you're at the parks and when you're going on these attractions and you're going on these rides. And even right from, I love the opening title sequence. It's so fun, and it feels like you're jumping on a ride and going through all these different experiences.
I also want to shout out, like, I think on our last trip for your wedding, Kevin, I remember we went to the Hall of Presidents, and I'd never gone to the Hall of Presidents before. And I got to say, well, it still doesn't sit high on my list of favorite attractions. The episode that features it in this series really gave me a new appreciation for it, not necessarily for it as the Hall of Presidents, but as an appreciation of A, the technology, and B, a dedication from Roy to Walt and from between these two brothers. So, to me, like, that makes me want to at least go back and see Biden when we go next year, potentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I will, every time there's a new president added to it, I'll do it again. That way, for sure, you only have to sit through the presentation every 4 to 8 years. But I mean, there were a few episodes when, as I was looking at the list, I went, oh, that one doesn't jump off the page at me.
Right.
But every episode had its moments. There's an episode dedicated to trains and monorails that was fantastic.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I really enjoyed about the series was, going into it, you might see an attraction where maybe you're not as interested in it, but maybe you are interested in maybe what it became. And I think the show has a really good through line throughout pretty much almost every episode, where it does show how the technology was used and is used today. And I think that's so cool that we can get something, and it's so cool that we can get something like Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run from Star Tours, like the exact same technology, but then enhanced, obviously, for today.
Exactly. And I think we as fans who have gone have seen that. We know that that's where that evolution has come from. But to hear this sort of behind the scenes story of what went into it and the involvement, like, I think that, like, those little stories, to learn those sort of things behind it, it just really draws, like, how much goes into this and how many things they just throw it to the wind and say, hopefully it works out.
But it's just amazing how they're constantly learning from their mistakes and from their achievements. And not to give too much away about the Star Wars episode, but with Smuggler's Run, you can really see that the advancements and the struggles they had with the Abraham Lincoln animatronic led to Hondo on Smuggler's Run, which is one of the best we've ever seen. And just with Space Mountain, and one of their biggest concerns was how are they going to get enough people throughout the day onto this ride, and they had to come up with solutions for that. And then you see that applied to Smuggler's Run and the way they develop that ride system. It's just amazing how they keep learning from different parts of the park and applying it as they move forward. Now, again, this is a trickier show than we're kind of used to, just because there isn't really a narrative that we can break down. And so I don't want to beleaguer things too much. Was there anything on the show that didn't quite work for you?
Yeah, I mean, Justin, you had mentioned how the trains, planes, and automobiles. What episode was that? Train, trams, and monorails or something. That episode, how you guys really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it too. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. Even though it was that I guess it's the last episode in the series. The only thing that kind of bothered me, and I have really mixed feelings on this because, I think it can be watched in any order, and I think
It does.
It doesn't, but the thing is, it doesn't have any sort of progression, which in one way that mirrors guests in an experience at the park where you choose what attraction you want to experience in any order. But unlike the experience at the parks, usually they end with like a big fireworks show. And
Right.
I was kind of hoping for the final episode in the season to provide that sense of sort of grand scale final act, or just something that culminates maybe all of this stuff together into one final episode, and we didn't really get that. It just kind of ended.
Yeah, no, I get you. You are the kind of person that looks through this for the story in everything, right? And I see what you mean by them not having like a through point narrative. But I think that's what's so great about this, is that it is crafted in a way that you can enjoy your own attraction, or you can watch the rides that you really, really connected with and have some really great memories with, and watch that history. And I think that's what's actually really great about it, is that there's not a through point. It is individual snackable episodes that can be enjoyed in themselves, but they do form a continuity of a history, like of a really fun history show.
I definitely agree, though I will say it does lack the cohesion of the Imagineering story in that and I think it coming out so close to that, it's only about a year apart. Some elements did feel like, we've kind of gone over this before. I already know this story or this part of the story. So that was the one thing for me that was lacking, was anytime they were sort of just retelling an element from that Imagineering story that we'd already sort of gotten.
Yeah. I have nothing really bad to say about the show.
I mean, that's great. I mean, this is done by $7 Production, which is The Rock's production company, right? Dwayne Johnson's production company.
The first time I saw that, as I was watching the first episode, I thought, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And obviously it makes sense when you sort of get into one episode in particular.
For sure. And I think that makes it definitely works for that. But it's just, I'm wondering if, what would this series... Like, maybe we wouldn't have gotten the amazing humor that we love if it wasn't done by this particular group, and it was done by the same people that did the Imagineering story. So, like, again, that's where my mixed feelings kind of come into play. But I would have liked sort of just I would have liked watching the last episode and just sort of felt like that. This is the final.
Yeah, the bow
episode.
on it all. Yeah,
but maybe that wasn't the final episode. There's obviously an abundance of rides and attractions that they could explore in potential future seasons. So,
right.
Are there any particular rides, park elements, or other aspects of a Disney park that you would like to see explored if there are more seasons?
If I was thinking like rides, maybe like something like Peter Pan. I'd love to learn more about that, and the narrative ride, if you will.
Yeah, I believe they call them dark rides. And so generally, you're on a track going through the dark, and I would agree. Peter Pan's Flight, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, that would be a good one.
I would love to see more on those.
I'm a kid of the 90s, and so I think it would be really cool to see some of the shows and behind the scenes of them. So, like, It's Tough to Be a Bug or Muppet Vision 3D. It was such a fun experience for me when I was a kid. And so to see for a lot of people, it's like, and for a lot of people, like, those are just the things you do to get out of the heat or the rain. But I've always really enjoyed them, and I think it would be cool to see the behind the scenes, see the actors who portrayed those moments, see maybe the behind the scenes of the recording of those moments.
Oh, that's such a great
and then you could bring that towards the modern live shows like Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor and Turtle Talk with Crush, right? To see how those actually work, and to see how their shows have sort of evolved from this sort of set, everything happens the same way every single time pre-recorded, to now a more live interactive experience. And I think that would be a really fun episode if they want to do that.
That could really easily fit the mold of how they do it. You would start with, the Country Bear Jamboree that you mentioned there, Just.
Totally.
And which they haven't in either series now really explored, and it's such a staple.
It might be though because of questionable depiction.
For sure.
Similar to Splash Mountain.
Well, speaking of that, I would love to see sort of that transformation that they're doing, because I found that really interesting with the Tower of Terror. I'd love to see them doing the re-theming of Splash Mountain, and I think they're doing it a bit with Jungle Cruise as well, even though they didn't really touch on it in the Jungle Cruise episode here.
No.
So anytime they could show that sort of modernization, because it shows that they're growing and learning from those mistakes, right? And so I don't think that they need to shy away from it if there's a clear indication that they are sort of growing from those past mistakes.
Sure. I totally think, though, like classic rides.
Yeah, let me see Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Let me revisit something where, a couple rides that aren't there anymore. This would be a great chance to just revisit those for maybe people who never got to ride them, or some of us who missed them and haven't ridden them in a while. And I know this might be very, very specific to me, but I would love a special on Disney Springs. The way they've created Disney Springs, this fantastic shopping, dining, and live entertainment experience. What went into developing that? I would personally find that one really, really interesting just because of how much time my family and I spend there.
Yeah, at Downtown Disney was what it was originally called, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I know they have an episode in this season about the Disneyland Hotel, but there's such a unique identity to each of their resorts that you could have another episode that sort of focused and really went into those elements. It
feeds to the idea, too, of behind the attraction. Right, like that's the big thing, and these are all what we're talking about are the attractions of Disney, right? So,
and we had the benefit of doing the Keys to the Kingdom VIP tour where we got to learn some of those behind the scenes secrets, and obviously they don't like to give too much away, but anytime you could learn more about cast members and their roles, I know they have a series sort of dedicated to that, but to insert that into the attractions aspect of it, I think would be really, really cool. Well, guys, before we wish our listeners a happy ever after, let's give our final thoughts and score on Behind the Attraction. We're going to score the series out of 5 hidden Mickeys. Nate, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the series. These attractions are like magic, and when you're a kid, they do exactly what they're supposed to do, which is provide a magical experience that transports you to different worlds and that will thrill and inspire you. And they still do that to you as an adult, but when you're a kid, you don't consider the human beings that brought all the magic to life. And this series, while it focuses on the attractions that came before and how they inspired the ones we have today, it also does such a great job at introducing and celebrating the people who've made Walt and Roy's visions for people to enjoy throughout literally generations of people. I really enjoyed the show for how light it was, how fun and how fun it was. And it's honestly just such an easy and lovely watch. Again, I do wish that there was some sort of a pop at the end, some sort of just something to kind of really wrap everything together as a way to say this is the final episode. But I also do appreciate that you can kind of watch it in any order or omit complete episodes. And it's a great primer for anyone taking a trip to the parks or even something to watch before you watch the Jungle Cruise. So for my final score, I'm going to rate this entire series a solid 4 out of 5 hidden Mickeys. It was a lot of fun, and I really hope they do a season 2 because I'd like to see them explore some of the things we talked about.
Awesome. Justin, final thoughts?
Yeah, well, Nate pretty much said it all. It's absolutely, it's a fun, enjoyable watch that, gives you a peek behind the curtain. I think for us, as you said, Nate, we as kids, we loved the rides and it had its magic, and now to kind of learn more about what goes into that and the people that make it, this is great. So if you're into that sort of stuff, this is perfect for you. That being said as well, I think that the best part about this is it kind of lives up to Walt's vision of what he wanted to do with a lot of the attractions at Disney is entertain while still educating, while passing on enlightenment and that you can learn while having fun. And I think that this is what's really great about the show, is that you're learning so much about the past of what has helped to build Disney park experiences so much, and you're having fun while you're doing it. So yeah, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5 hidden Mickeys as well.
Nice. It sounds like we're all pretty much in the same ballpark here. I've given it a 4.2 out of 5 hidden Mickeys, just because I can never stick to those round numbers. But I thought the show, it featured enough new information to be fun and informative, but it also just did, I think, what it was most successful at was making me crave my next trip, especially after being away from the park for a year and a half. And there was certain moments where I just felt myself like, oh, I can't wait to do that again. I can't wait to do that again. And even some things that I haven't been as interested in the past or haven't done in a while. Like for me, the first thing I'm doing when I get to Magic Kingdom next time is I'm riding around the park on the train, which I haven't done since I was probably in my teens. And it's just, it'll almost be like a new and fresh experience. And that's just so amazing that they can still provide those sort of experiences.
Yeah, man.
And, speaking of wanting to return to parks, I'll start wrapping up this episode by plugging what remains one of my all-time favorite videos that we've ever done. And this episode is actually the last large-scale episode we were able to complete for the YouTube channel before COVID halted production over at the Geekcentric studios. So please go and check out our Day at Disney video as we take a tour through the happiest place on Earth through the world of toys and collectibles. But before you do that, we want to thank you for joining us as we left today and entered the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy with this week's episode. We hope you enjoyed your visit. If you did, please be sure to give us a magical 5-star rating and subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on this upcoming series, or with some magical experiences you've had at a Disney park, or even with what some of your favorite rides and attractions are, we would love to hear from you. This is definitely one topic we'll never get tired of discussing. Justin, where can they do that?
Oh, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com.
Also, if you don't know, we have more than just our regular episodes of the Geekcentric podcast, as we currently have 2 watch clubs on the go with Loki and Star Wars The Bad Batch each and every week. Be sure to check in as we share our thoughts on some of the biggest shows from Disney+. Hey, Nate, what's going on over in Twitchneyland?
Twitchneyland. Oh my gosh. That would be a really interesting mashup or collab. Twitch.tv/NatePlaysGames. You know what? We've been hanging out a lot. It's been a little bit tricky with everything opening back up here in Ontario for me to nail down an exact schedule for streaming. And so I'm still working on that. So make sure you check out my Instagram, instagram.com/NatePlaysGames, or just at NatePlaysGames on Instagram, rather. That way you can really follow to see when I'm going live. But you know what? I've just been enjoying some good Fall Guys, some good Gang Beasts action, and having a lot of fun with the chat. So just all hanging out, having a magical time over there on Twitch.
Awesome. Well, Justin, Nate, thank you so much for joining me for today's dream-filled episode. I can't wait to have a Dole Whip with you guys in the most magical place on Earth soon. Remember, a dream is a wish your heart makes. And as we say...
Love ya.
I can't believe I get to say this again. Get home safe, guys.
Peace.